Welcome to Remote Reward Placement. In this video, I will show you some techniques to help your dog learn to work in the presence of highly distracting stimuli. As you'll see, Chakira is very motivated for this toy. Here we'll step into the last rep of the day. Here I've placed Chakira's primary reinforcer, a toy, and I've given her a come command. Notice I'm marking yes prior to her arrival. I'm not asking for a finish here. And then I've given her the clearance to bite the toy. I'm telling her to bring the toy back, and I'll repeat that one time. I mark yes, and then I ask for the out. Then I mark yes again. Play, intense play. And here I just let her go. I give her a win. I'm laughing because I'm very pleased with her performance. This is really the first day she's ever done this sort of a routine with me. And here I'm going to ask for her to out the toy back on the touchpad. I'm going to surprise her here. She thought she was going to be released to bite the toy again for that little bit of work of dropping it. But instead she was called back to a foos. Now I'll release her again. She can get the toy again. Here we're on our first rep of the day. You'll notice a different toy. We're using a jute bite pillow here. You'll notice Chakira's level of interest in that toy is pretty intense. She's given it a good look there. And I'm going to just heel with her. Notice her heel's looking kind of sloppy. She's kind of glancing back at the toy. There she gives me a little bit of focus, but now she's glancing at the toy again, glancing at the toy again. A little sluggish here. Not super motivated for me because she wants that toy. She looked at it again. She did check in with me, which was good, which is why she got released. If instead you wanted guarding behavior, you could pressure the dog into contact, then mark and reward toy focus. So I'm using my no and yes markers here. I find she's been biting this toy crooked, so I'm trying to out her so that I can get her to bite it correctly. There we go. Turned it correct. And she can get a full mouth bite on it, and we can play. Notice no response. Here you're going to notice she is intent on the toy and not so much on listening at that point. So I applied a little bit of spatial pressure by leaning towards her, which helped her to realize she actually did have to down. Called her back to the foos and noticed she's a little bit more interested in what I'm saying because I made sure she understood she had to do it to get the toy. And then she thought she was in a sort of a correction mode there. Because when I released her to bite the toy, she hesitated, thinking, no, I'm being denied the toy. So, understanding the dynamic there is kind of important. Notice she still has the toy, but in essence, I'm using a negative reinforcement there. I'm not going to take the toy and play with her until she brings it all the way to me. So I'll step back and use sort of a negative spatial pressure and pull her back towards me. Notice I'm making her come between me and the toy to enter the foos. This is absolutely intentional. She knows she has the option to disobey and bite the toy, but it does not end up resulting in play if she does. Notice there's a little sluggish here, glancing back at the toy, rather distracted. Asking for her to watch the toy, and when she does, I clear her to bite it. Notice the difference between watching the toy on command and glancing away. Those are two different things in my book. And again, negative spatial pressure pulling her towards me. Looks like she's got her nose hooked under the handle a little bit. I try not to play with her unless the toy is fully bitten correctly. Otherwise, we start to develop problems. I feel like Chakira has a little bit of a hesitation to bark for me. With a helper, she will bark and light up, but I notice that her bark for me is a little bit slow, and this may just have to do with the social structure between the two of us. Notice she has no problem working for me quickly when I'm holding the toy. Now watch the difference. A little slower. And didn't hold the plats. Slower still. That was a pretty good rep right there. I was a little slow on my yes marker, which she started to finish the recall, which I really wasn't looking for. Asking for the bark again. Here I'm waiting till I get several barks quickly before I mark yes. Notice she's hesitating between barks, and so I'm trying to speed that up and only marking when she gives me 4 or 5 quick ones. Gave a no marker for non-compliance and called again. She thinks I'm throwing her the toy because I'm being sloppy. Notice she's cheating towards the toy. And that's specifically because she's queued up on this distracting object, not so much on me. That was good. Still hesitating and looking toward the toy sometimes. Looked at the toy. Looking at the toy. Looking at the toy again. And now she's kind of begging for the toy in her own way. This is sort of a checkout behavior. She's going to sniff the ground like, if I hang around here long enough, I'll get this thing I want. I'm specifically choosing to reward her when she checks in with me hard and looks right in my eyes. That's the behavior that I'm trying to elicit here. Somehow she keeps hooking her nose under that handle, which makes the out hard for her because she can't pry her nose out from under that. Look, she's cheating toward the toy instead of checking in with me. She will not get rewarded for that. Now she's looking at me pretty good.
Yes, hook 'em.
And so I've given her the yes marker specifically for looking at me, but she came to me instead of the toy. So that's actually encouraging. Although it wasn't what I was thinking she would do. Instead of going to the object, she came to me for the reward. Now I'm getting a little frustrated with her failure to bring here. You can tell she's a little excited. So one thing I will bring up early here in this video is it's warm the day that we're working on this, and so I am intentionally giving her what I would call forced rest. After every 8 to 10 minutes of work, I put her up in a crate for about the same amount of time. The crate's in the shade, it has a water dish in it, and I give her about a cup of water in the crate, in the dish, so that she can rest, recover a little bit, and cool down. I'm very careful about how much water I let her access in this kind of heat, but I make sure that I do it frequently. The reason we want to limit the available amount of water at any one time is to keep the dog from guzzling and potentially bloating their stomach. Here I'm adding a little bit of distance. Got good eye contact from Chakira the whole time, but I'm asking for her to look at the toy, not just to come to me. It's a little bit more complicated than our last batch of reps.
Pass over. Pass over. Yes.
So here I took the distance away and reminded her what this looks like.
Bring.
Again, negative spatial pressure pulling her towards me.
House.
A little bit of dirty biting there. And now I figured out if I prop it up on the side of the touchpad, we get a better bite the first time.
Pass over. No.
Again, no markers, negative reinforcement.
Let's.
A little bit of spatial pressure and cueing.
Pass over. Pass over. Come. Yes. Huckle.
There, she did it pretty good. That was sort of the first success we had where she did the two-step behavior.
Pass over. Yes.
Notice I've changed the angle so she has to look by turning her head even further. And here I'm messing up. Excuse my mess up. Instead of rewarding her, marking the reward prior to the finish, I kind of made her finish. Kind of my attempt to save the rep there.
Bring. House. Nope. House. Let's. Let's.
There's a flat refusal. She gets a no marker, and she offers a foos position.
Let's. Like.
I missed the opportunity to give another no marker there.
Pass over. No. Pat, no. So.
There's the look. Nope, looked away.
Pass over. Yes, puck 'em.
Gotta gauge how long your dog holds the behavior and mark your yes prior to them breaking. Now here we're gonna take another break. Anytime she starts to lose focus, I go to put her up. And that's just a way to prolong the session without wearing her out completely. Here I'm going to do a little bit of blood sugar management for her. I just feel like she might be bonking a little bit. It's been a few hours since she's eaten anything. And just to give her a little bit of an energy boost, I'm going to switch to some food rewards with kibble. Now, Chakira will work for food normally, but at this location, she is highly play-driven and has associated this location with very exciting types of play. So she is not that interested in the food, even though she's probably fairly hungry. She's also a little bit confused because we've progressed quite a ways beyond luring to food in my hand. But at the same time, she's willing to work for it. And essentially, we're taking a step backwards, checking in with some of our prior training, and just revisiting some of the prerequisite work so that you can see what's required in order to get your dog to this point. I don't expect you to start in a basic obedience class and immediately jump to this skill. When I'm marking yes, I'm releasing the food, and sometimes she gets it, sometimes she drops it. Sometimes she thinks there was more than there was.
Loose. Nope. Loose. Yes. Flats. Line. Good.
Here I'm just reinforcing the downstay.
Good.
And here I mess up. I walk away, and I don't give her a no for breaking the down. That was my fault. Here I'm going to reinforce the exercise we've done with
Pass over.
watching the reward.
Pass over.
And since she's not that motivated for this food, this doesn't make a lot of sense to her, but she does come around.
Pass over.
She
Yes.
takes a look at it, gets a yes. And again, she's going to look for the toy.
Looking for the toy? You are. Loose. Seats. Pass over. No. Pass over. Yes. Loose.
Again, not that motivated for this food. Definitely looking around for a drag or a tug toy to engage with. Gave her another rest period, and we're on to a small tug, which she really goes crazy for.
Loose.
Again, checking back in with some luring. I'm intentionally making her step around and over these touch pads. I want her real world behavior tightened up, not necessarily just on the training field. So being able to negotiate around objects and continue in the heel is important to me. I've asked her for a middle. Working on getting her excitement up a little bit. Some misses.
House.
Notice the dirty biting. She's excited.
Leave it. No.
Yeah. And some negative reinforcement here. That's a pretty good test. She's still checking in on the toy, but she didn't dive for it.
Mita. No. Mita.
And now that I don't have the toy, she has no interest in the work. She is locked onto that toy waiting for me to release her to it. This is also a function of generalizing. She worked fairly well for the tug pillow, but now that we switched toys, it's like we're starting over again. So understanding that just because your dog worked for one toy in this method doesn't mean that every distraction will work the same way. Here I'm just kind of letting her check out because I think she's kind of hot,
Leave it.
but notice she feels like she got released by the pet.
Loose. No.
Again, she's orienting on the direction of the toy instead of to me. So she's getting a negative reinforcement and a no marker. That'll help here. Again, focused on the toy, not on me. So I'll go back to luring and we'll kind of remind her. Here's the middle.
Flats. Foos.
Offering the middle again instead of the foos.
Foos.
offering a front instead of a foos.
Foos.
Here she's responding to my body language of standing with my feet apart
Foos.
instead of my words, because she's distracted. Now I've called her into the foos and lured her and marked that.
House. House. Yes.
Here we're just working on our out and reinforcing.
Yes.
This is really just a function of switching gears, working with what the dog's giving you. She was not giving me good attention on the onto me, rather focused on the toy, so we'll use that for a pretty simple behavior, which is outing the toy. And we'll work on that while we can, and then we'll switch back.
No. Leave it. Mita.
Giving her the lure again to middle, and a quick reward.
Bring. House. Mita. Nope. Mita.
And here we go, without the lure. But again, she's still responding to the body language of standing with my feet apart, so we're only part way there on that.
Foos. Foos.
Here my feet are far enough apart she could have squeezed in the middle, and she still answered the foos instead of trying to squeeze in the middle, so we're making progress already.
House. Seats. Glide. No. Seats. Glide. Foos.
Here I'm working on getting her to enter the heel position as efficiently as possible. You'll notice in a lot of the sections of this video, when Chakira enters the heel, she almost always goes around behind me, even if it'd be more efficient for her to just swing her rear end. So the technique there is just teaching her to swing her rear end in. I'm doing a little bit of moving, and eventually I fade the movement of my own movement out of the equation.
Foos.
There she went around.
Glide. Glide.
Cheating towards the toy there. And I'm giving her a little bit of help, and she swung nicely.
Yes.
So she gets a reward. You can parallel virtually any technique that you're working on with your dog with a remote reward placement, so long as your dog understands the concept that it's not allowed to touch the toy until you give it a yes marker and release it. Couple of good reps, and then the slowness to enter the plats for me was a good enough indication that she needed a rest. So here we're back onto our last rep of the day. You saw this as we opened the video, but I'll run through it one more quick time so you understand some of the details that are going on here. So we've been reinforcing the downstay. We have been using a pass auf command to indicate she needs to look. And here I skipped that step, went straight to the recall. and marked yes before she actually reached me. She's pretty worn out, so I used one simple behavior to end the day with this. And notice she had to run almost directly away from the toy in order to access it. This was a pretty good indication she'd understood the material for the day, that she was willing to directly run away from the toy and turn around when she was released and come back for it. She knew exactly what she was working for. As you can tell, I'm pretty happy that she made that progress today. For me, this kind of exercise is about functioning in the real world. And for a dog, usually the real world is going to be about coping with surprises. And that's why I chose right here at the end of the exercise to give her a little surprise. Notice when I gave the foos command, she was expecting a yes, not a foos. So as we make progress, what we'll do is we'll extend the amount of work that the dog has to do to access the reward, and over time we'll be able to overcome a lot of distraction. Now there will still be distractions that the dog has not generalized to this technique, but the more we reinforce working for us with the distraction present, the better we will get. If you'd like to introduce your dog to techniques that will lead you up to this point, or if you feel that your dog is working towards this and you'd like to join us for training, please reach out to us at our website, audaxcanine.com, or through Facebook at audaxcanine, and check out our upcoming class schedules. We also will travel through the Puget Sound area for private instruction. We also offer an in-home board and train program to meet your dog's specific needs. Thank you for watching.